Hi everybody, welcome back to my channel. My name is Zara and today I'm going to be doing part 2 of a little mini video series that I'm doing on beginner sci-fi books. I will be doing more advanced recommendations at some point, but today I'm going to do part 2 to beginner ones because I have a lot more recommendations to give. I've been really getting into the genre lately. I've had so many books that I've loved and kind of discovered, and I really want to recommend them to you. So with that in mind, let's jump in. The first book that I'm going to recommend is Annihilation by Jeff Vandermeer. This is a book that was also adapted by Netflix, and that's actually what I ended up watching first. I watched the movie first and then I read the book, and I really liked it. It's a very short book. It is a trilogy, but you can read the book very much as a standalone, and we're essentially following a bunch of different characters as they enter into this area that is almost like a no-go land where it's very unpredictable and nobody really knows what's happening there. One of the things that I love about this book is the tone. It's a constant feeling of suffocation. You really feel like the characters are being suffocated, and not only just the characters, but the world is suffocated, whether it's the animals or the plants or whatever it may be. It is a very well written book. It's very, very easy to get through, and it's one of those books that will have you thinking about it long after you have finished reading it. There are some little horror elements to it too that I was not expecting, but I really loved, and it gave another extra layer to it. Next up is a book that I read recently. Keep an eye out for my review because it is without a doubt one of my favorite sci-fi books of all time now, and that is China Mountain Zhang by Maureen McHugh. This is a book almost written as a collection of short stories with an overarching plot, and we have an overarching character that we are following. It is just an incredibly interesting world where we are in an alternate history of the US where it essentially became colonized by communist China. So we are in communist America now, but it is run by the Chinese, and it is a very interesting intimate story where we are following a gay man as he tries to figure his way in this world. It is absolutely fascinating. I'm only going to tell you that as the plot summary because it is one of those books that you need to go in with zero expectation and you will just be blown away. It is incredibly well written. The thematic work is incredible. Such a varied amount of thematic work that is explored, from personal identity all the way up to space colonization to beauty standards and being able to meet those beauty standards. Like, it's just incredible. I did not know what to expect when I went into it, and it was one of the best books that I have read this year, and I strongly recommend it. I also think it's quite easy to get through. I read it in a day, so you know, I'm quite a fast reader, and I was reading it quite slowly because I just was lapping up the writing, but it is one of those books that you can get through quite quickly, and it is also a standalone. Next up, we have The Vanished Birds by Simon Jimenez. This is an incredibly complex world that is actually written in a very simple way and very easy to digest, and it is a world where we are spanning universes and time, and there's threads upon threads that are being linked towards each other. And I think it's one of those books that you kind of have to reread to fully appreciate the scale and the beauty of the world. But at least for me, you know, I read it for the first time a couple of months back, and I really enjoyed this very character-driven story that ascends time and space. And it's a very intimate story against this very large backdrop, and it's just so beautifully written, as Simon Jimenez does. And it's one of those books that will just take you to another part of the world, and it will make you think about your own relationships and will make you think about your own role in this world that we're all trying to shape in some way or another, whether we do it intentionally or unintentionally. But it's about the footprint that we leave on other people and also the space around us. It's beautiful. Go read it. Next up, we have a Japanese translated sci-fi book. These guys are killing it when it comes to sci-fi. I've read a few now, and I've really enjoyed all of the ones that I've read. I had one on my previous list, if I remember correctly, and I have one on this list, and that is The Last Children of Tokyo by Yoko Tawada. Yoko Tawada is an amazing author, and she's extraordinarily talented. This is a book that is set in a different version of Japan, specifically in Tokyo, where essentially there's a lot of air pollution, and the environment is no longer what it once was. There's a lot of instability, and it's basically like a dystopian version of the world. And we're essentially following two characters: an older character who is looking after a young boy who is constantly very ill, and he's very ill because of the impact of the world on his health. And it's just really fascinating to read. It's a very intimate, quite slow story. There's no real plot, but it's just really beautifully written, and we get a very unpleasant look at what the future might look like for future children. It's one of those books that is quite somber in tone and it's quite muted in the way that it delivers its message, but once you have a bit of reflection on it, you realize that this is not the sort of world that we particularly want to build for future children. It's fascinating, very quick read, strongly recommend it. Penultimately, we have Rendezvous with Rama by Arthur C. Clarke. This is another really short book. It's also a standalone, and it's one of those books that you will completely get lost in when you start reading it. We're essentially following a crew who basically go onto a new planet, and it's an previously undiscovered planet, and it's basically about their experiences as they try to figure out what is happening on that planet, who is there, you know, what is going on essentially. And it's just so cinematic. I'm so excited to see Denis Villeneuve's depiction of this movie, because he's just an extraordinarily talented director, and it is the sort of book that is meant to be adapted to screen. It's funny, when I did my review of it, whenever I did it a few years back, the thing I actually said in that was this needs to be adapted. And then a few months later, it came out that Denis Villeneuve was adapting it to screen. So Denis, I think you got that from me. No, I'm joking. I don't think he did it. I'm sure it's been years in the making, but I'm going to totally take credit for it. But it's fantastic. It's one of those books where the tone is like a big part of what makes it so special, because there is this constant sense of discovery and trying to figure out what is happening. And we don't ever really get an answer, but we do get a sense of the weird and wacky things that are happening on this planet. But then there is also this broader political battle that is going on outside of what is happening with the people on this new planet that I thought was also really interesting and provided a nice contrast. It's a very quick book to read, very easy to get through, and it's one of those books that will feel like you're watching a movie. So definitely go read it. Last but most certainly not least, we have Neuromancer by William Gibson. This is a classic sci-fi book that I think everybody should read if you're interested in the genre. Pretty easy to get through, and it is what Matrix was inspired by. It's what inspired the Wachowski duo to actually make the Matrix movies. And you definitely get a lot of that from the book. And it's not an exact carbon copy, to be very clear, but there is very much a lot of inspiration that you can see reflected in the Matrix movies. It's one of those books that you kind of have to buckle in and just kind of go along for the ride and just kind of accept what you're reading. But it's a really fun time. And I remember coming off the back of it thinking, damn, that's pretty cool. Like, it's very cinematic. And I guess that's why it was partially adapted to the screen. So I definitely recommend it. Again, William Gibson is one of the kind of quintessential sci-fi authors, and I want to read more of his stuff. But I think if I were to say start anywhere, you have to start with one of the OG ones, and that is Neuromancer. So there we have it. There are some more recommendations for beginner sci-fi recs. A lot of these I've read recently. Some of them I read a few years back before I even had my YouTube channel, but all of them I definitely vouch for, and I think you will really enjoy. I will be doing another part to this little mini series, probably more kind of on intermediate advanced recommendations that require a little bit more time, dedication and thought to them. But I think all of the ones that I've recommended so far you can get through pretty quickly. They're pretty easy to read and understand. So let me know down below in the comments if you've read any of these books, if you have any other recommendations that you yourself would recommend to others, but also to me, because I'm always looking to read more in the genre. And I will see you in my next video. Please do give this a thumbs up, and I will see you in my next one. Thanks for watching, folks. Stay safe, take care, and I will see you very soon. Bye.